for a moment, let's think of all the misery that our self-centered attitude causes us. How it makes us extremely sensitive, easily offended. How it makes us create so much negative karma through speaking harshly to others or taking their things or being deceptive, whatever. And how our self-centered thought is so involved with our misery. Because every time we have health problems or mental unhappiness or something isn't very nice, you know, why does that happen? It's because of karma that we created and what motivated us to create that harmful karma. It certainly wasn't a virtuous attitude, it was the self-centered thought. So whenever we're unhappy about something, we should see the self-centered thought as the cause of it and make a strong determination to oppose that self-centered thought. And we do this for our own happiness as well as for the happiness of everybody else. Because self-centeredness destroys our own happiness, prevents us from gaining realizations, and it makes the people around us pretty miserable as well. And so with a strong determination to resist the self-centeredness, then let's generate bodhicitta, that wonderful, beautiful heart that genuinely cares for others and wants to attain enlightenment for their benefit. And let's have that be our motivation for listening to teachings. So we hear lots of teachings about the faults of self-centeredness. And we say, oh, that makes so much sense. My self-centered thought really makes me so miserable. And then in our daily lives, do we oppose our self-centered thought when it comes up? Do we say, this is my self-centered thought, I'm not going to follow it? Sometimes. Or when our self-centered thought comes up, do we put our hands together and say, whatever you do, Lama, you're my Lama, you're my master, whatever you do, whatever you say, I will follow. It's mostly that, isn't it? Yeah, we bow down to our self-centered thought. Whatever it says, we do. The Buddha may tell us to do something else. Our Dharma teacher may tell us to do something else. We get mad at them because they don't know what in the world they're talking about. And our self-centeredness is the omniscient one who's going to lead us to everlasting bliss. So every day, we should, at the end of the day, we should be able to look back at the day and notice at least one time where we very consciously oppose the self-centered thought. And that's what the Bodhisattva precepts about, especially the auxiliary ones, which have so much to do with our daily life. You know, to at least one time, if not more every day, to be able to look and say, my self-centered thought wanted me to do this, and I was able to say no to it. Yeah, I was able to direct my mind back to what I know is going to be the cause of happiness, instead of just letting my mind, be run by the dictator of the self-centered thought. At least one time we should be able to look back at the end of the day and say that. So that means at least one time every day we're going to have to do something we don't want to do. Who wants to do that? No one. Because I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I don't want to do what I don't want to do when I don't want to do it. And I'm going to get my way. So I came to Sravasti Abbey to train my mind. That's what I'm saying. But actually, it's the self-centered thought that's training my mind. And if one of my Dharma friends tries to say something to me about it, or my teacher says something to me about it, I get mad. Because they're butting their nose in something that's not their business. Or they're pushing me. They're pushing me. Don't push me. Or they're out to get me. They're deliberately making me unhappy. Yeah. That's what we think, isn't it? Yeah? My Dharma friends, my teacher, they're all making me so miserable. They don't care about me. They don't care about my happiness. They're just pushing me too hard. They're demanding. They don't understand me. They're asking me to do things I can't possibly do. And we're so nasty and disagreeable sometimes that, we're very successful in that then our Dharma friends and our teacher don't say anything to us because they're afraid. Because they know as soon as they try to approach us about something we're sensitive to, we're going to be like a porcupine and shoot out, quills. And, we're going to be like the guy in Arizona, in the shopping center, remember? That's what we're going to be like towards the people around us when they say things that we don't like. Doesn't matter who they are. Yeah? And so then we're very successful. Then they stop saying things to us. And then we feel, oh, I'm so happy at Sravasti Abbey. I'm so happy here. But what we've really done is we've made our friends afraid of us. Yeah. And do we want to have friends who can't speak honestly and truly to us because they're afraid of our temper? They're afraid of how defensive we get? Is that the kind of friendships we want to have? That's not a Dharma friendship, is it? So, now I'm going to say something that none of you are going to like to hear. That you're going to get mad at me about. You might remember a few weeks ago I made the comment about people judging about when they're going to miss session and when they're not. And this particular retreat, there's been a lot of missing of sessions, more than any of our other winter retreats. This has happened, this retreat. Now, yes, part of it was because of renovating the hall. And we all agreed to that. All the residents agreed to that beforehand. We all knew that was going to happen. So I'm not talking about missing sessions for offering service and taking care of the hall and those kinds of things. Okay? What I'm talking about is when I reminded you, to just use the thing of, if I had a job, would I miss work because of how I feel right now? Yeah. Now, my observation is that a lot of you would be unemployed. because your boss would fire you, you know, because of the amount of, you know, time off you're taking because you're too exhausted and didn't sleep last night, you know. So I'm wondering, is it too noisy here? Yeah. Are you hungry at night, like a lot of people in the world? Are you living in a war zone where there's rockets going off and you can't sleep and you're terrified? And what's the big thing about not being able to sleep at night? Yeah. Sometimes I don't sleep well at night. You get up the next morning and you do what you do. Yeah. Now our U.S. Congress is very influenced by the NRA, the National Rifle Association. We have our own NRA here called the the Nuns and Residents Rest Association. And it is just as the NRA in Washington is demanding their right to own guns. We are demanding our right to sleep. And I want to sleep when I want to sleep, and I want to sleep as much as I want to sleep. Yeah. And if I don't feel well, I'm going to sleep. Because sleep makes me feel well, and Dharma makes me feel sick. Yeah. And when I die, when the Lord of Death comes and says, ho, 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 you know, I'm coming for you now, we're going to say, sorry, I'm not ready to die. I didn't sleep enough last night. Yeah. Sorry, Lord of Death, I have a headache. I want to die in peace. Come back later when I feel better, and then I can meditate while I'm dying. If we can't meditate and at least try and practice when we have some small thing that we don't feel well about, what in the world are we going to do when we're dying? Tell me that. Yeah? If the moment we don't feel well, we just, you know, give up and don't try and work with our mind, what are we going to do when we're dying? Yeah? So when I say things like that, I'm trying to speak out of compassion, you know, because the Lord of Death is not going to be so nice to you. Yeah. And Mara is saying, oh, people sleeping through meditation session, people not feeling good. You know, the Mara, the personification of evil. Yeah. And Mara is simply our self-centered thought. Yeah. So while we have this opportunity, you know, to practice, then we should definitely use it. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to control somebody. You know, if you don't try and work with your mind, I don't experience the result of that. Yeah, I experience the result of my own not working with my own mind. Yeah. But if you don't work with your mind, then, you know, you might be very happy and comfortable now, but what happens later? Yeah. So this is why, you know, in Dharma we're always thinking about death, and we're always thinking about the meaning and value and purpose of our life. And why are we here? And what really is meaningful in our life? Yeah. And I get what, you know, I'm going to tell people I want this and I don't want that, and I'm going to do this and I'm not going to do that. You know, are we going to at our deathbed say, oh good, I did a good job at that. I had such a nice life because I was really assertive and I told people what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. Yeah? So we have to think about, you know, what kind of seeds are we putting in our own mind through the way we're thinking and through the way we're acting. Because we're the ones who are going to experience the long-term results of these things. Yeah? So, we should really try and see the harm that the self-centered thought, does, and then try and oppose it. And, unless you really think your self-centered thought is your savior. And if you do, then you think your self-centered thought is going to be the thing that's going to make you everlastingly happy. Yeah, then walk down the hill and see if it makes you everlastingly happy. Yeah? See if it does. Try it out. Yeah? But if we've experienced enough misery in our life to know that our self-centered thought is, not acting in our benefit, then we should, for our own sake and for the sake of other people around us, try and do something about it. Okay. Any questions? Comments?
Saying what you were saying, when somebody isn't in the hall, it very much affects the environment in the hall, and it's harder for me to come when others don't show up.
Mm-hmm. So you're affected when people miss session.
Very much so.
Makes you not want to come.
Well, it's just harder. My self-centered thought starts going.
If they can sleep, so can I.
Yeah, well, I have this now too, and so
Yeah.
I don't know. This hurts.
Yeah, this hurts, that hurts, So, yeah, I should take some time out. Yeah. So I'm not talking about doing things that you can't do. I'm talking about opposing the self-centered thought that's telling you you can't do things that you can do. Yeah. Any other comments, questions?
No, only if I'm thinking back to our 1 month retreat, and it was just when there were so many people here,
Mm-hmm.
it was so easy to see how easily infectious our not coming became. And I've been really aware of my own inability to get here at a decent time. I think several of us have also been coming late. Or like flying under the belt, which to me is a symptom of the same thing. We get loose about coming, we get loose about coming on time, and so it just kind of moves through the whole group.
Yeah.
So I certainly own my participation in that.
Mm-hmm.
See that that's a factor.
So you're saying how infectious it is. When one person gets looser with their discipline, then everybody starts to follow suit in one way or another. Yeah.
Now, some people can say that hasn't been true, others say not everybody has.
But what?
Not everybody. There are some people who are in here early every time, and here every time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 But for the people who find it harder and who are more easily influenced by what other people do, then when other people miss or they're late, then it makes it harder for them to get here. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. I'm opening my mouth. I won't feel bad that I'm opening. So I had just written, I'm really glad you said all of this. At lunchtime I had just written that I had a victory at the end of the day yesterday, because I had left Venerable Tony a note at dinner that I was feeling shaky and wobbly, and I come to chanting, but I didn't know if I'd be able to stay beyond that. And so what I wrote at the end of the night, I stayed for the whole thing, and the victory was that I went and that I didn't poop out. When I'm in the down and tired, vulnerable feeling place, like, it's easy to believe that. And I don't always know how to identify that that's a self-centered place.
Mm-hmm.
But it really shifted when I came here. You know, it just shifted. It was a wonderful chanting and wonderful time on the cushion. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Yeah. So you're saying that you came last night, even though you felt wobbly, you weren't sure if you were going to stay, but you wound up having a good session.
Yeah, and I knew that that something wouldn't feel right if I didn't come, or even if I left. But I still don't, there's places where I don't know how to identify the self-centered mind so well yet.
Yeah, okay.
I got it a little bit, but it's...
Right. So what you're saying is it's hard to tell sometimes when you're genuinely sick versus when it's the self-centered mind saying, yeah. And, you know, my experience with that is, you know, because I have often been put in this position of being a teacher, that, you know, if I am scheduled to give a talk, it doesn't matter whether my self-centered mind is throwing a fit or whether I'm sick. I go. You know? So I don't have that thing of trying to decide which it is, because you don't have that choice when you're in that position.
Mm.
Yeah? Yeah. Whether you feel sick, whether, doesn't matter. You got to show up and be there. Yeah. So I've had that experience many times of not feeling well, and I go and, you know, let alone not, I mean, sitting meditation when you don't feel well, that's easy. But giving a Dharma talk when you don't feel well? Yeah? Or when your mind's really unhappy because somebody said who knows what to you 5 minutes before. And I found that it's so remarkable that when I go and I do it, I feel better afterwards. You know, there's the power in the Dharma of just being there, you know, at a puja or at a teaching or whatever it is. Yeah? So.
And I knew that I wasn't really sick, that I would have been dealing with hard stuff on the cushion. So I knew that. But also what you were both saying, the commitment to the Sangha makes a difference.
Yeah.
It had a lot to do with what got me there.
Yeah. It's the commitment that you have to the group, knowing that what you do influences people. Yeah. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you had that victory.
Well, I have had the experience that we talked about, and Susan just shared, of, you know, coming, wondering, you know, coming. And then I've had the experience of wondering, coming, and being really, really sicker from, like, if I have a migraine and arthritis flare-up simultaneously, and I come, sit through the hour and 15 minutes, and leave feeling sicker, and can barely keep my mind anywhere. I mean, I try to do Tonglen or whatever. So I'm just talking about the other end of this, and so that causes me more confusion.
Yeah. So
both of those things can happen.
Right.
Go and feel better, go and feel worse.
Worse. Right. Yeah. Sometimes it happens, it may happen, that you go and feel worse. So then you have to be able to know your body and know when you need to rest and not push yourself when you really need to rest. And the times that you do feel worse afterwards, to say, so what? Say what? So what? Instead of saying, oh, I went to the Dharma teaching, now I feel worse, I made such a horrible mistake. You know, to say, okay, I went to the Dharma teaching, I'm so glad I got the Dharma. I feel worse, but so what? I'll feel better later. You know, Lama Zopa was giving a teaching while he was having a stroke. And I talked to Venerable Dhammaratana in Singapore, this wonderful Sri Lankan monk that I've known for years. And he had had a heart attack, and he wasn't feeling well, but there was a family who came to him because somebody died. And he was talking to them for half an hour while he was having the heart attack. And then after they left, he said, I don't feel well, could somebody call the doctor? You know? So I'm not asking you to do that. Yeah. But I'm telling you what some people with very strong compassion can do. You know, I'm not asking to do that, you to do that. But, you know, if we don't feel well, why we don't feel well? Well, kind of, yeah, what else is new? We have a body. Of course we're not going to feel well sometimes. Yeah? Yeah, so I'm not saying push and do things you can't do. That's not what I'm saying. But it's, you know, the attachment we have to, oh, I don't feel well, I must be dying, you know? But then that way of relating to our body can, you know, really make us very uncomfortable. You had something?
I always think about Lama Yeshe and physically what he was experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
He should have not even been alive.
Yep.
And he was that kind of heart, and he was teaching, what, at least 15 years or so, like all over the globe.
Yeah. Lama had a hole in his heart. Yeah. And he took time out and rested every day. But he also taught, and he traveled, and he did incredible things. He dealt with all of us. My goodness. You know, I mean, I was in Lama's room one day, and I watched people come in, and one person after another whining about something. And Lama just dealt with it all and went on. Yeah? So we can look at the example of these people, you know, and say, let me try to get myself from where I am to where they are, slowly, slowly, you know. Let me, you know, do something with this self-centered thought every day. And then after a period of time, I'll be able to do like they do. Yeah, we can't do that immediately. But, you know, let's inch our way in that direction.
Well, I think for me too, just hearing those examples, something that I really have to watch for is that we have such an amazing opportunity. And we have it every single day, and we have it for a number of years. After a while, it's starting to get really kind of normal. So I miss a session, no big deal. There's another one this afternoon. You know, and I'm not going to be a Lama Yeshe in this life, so no big deal. So, you know, it's kind of easy to forget that the point is still to be training.
Yeah.
You know, just getting to know it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is something that can happen after being in a place at one time, that we just take it for granted. We have this opportunity, like you said, okay, I missed that. Well, you know, another one comes along. Doesn't matter. Yeah. But, yeah, and sometimes, I mean, sometimes when I look, I think, you know, did I really do right to start this place and make it so easy for everybody? Yeah. Because the way I trained was in a totally different kind of environment. Yeah. And it's so cushy here, you know, and sometimes I think, oh, maybe the cushiness just makes it too easy for people. And then they don't train. They, you know, just take it for granted. And, yeah.
Well, I do feel that plateau feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being here, like when I first came, I felt very challenged and very wrestling with the self-centeredness, and now it does have sort of a been watching this kind of plateau feeling, I
Mhm.
call it. Like,
Yeah.
it just, not like nothing's happening, I'm working on things, but there's a different quality.
Yeah.
Where I work to make myself comfortable wherever I am. I did that at home and every job. But I'm sitting here feeling this resistance to what you're saying. So I'm looking at it. And so I don't have this thought out, but let me lay something out and then help with it. So when I was a lawyer, mother, activist, I pushed and pushed and pushed and got sick and sick and sick, and I never rested. And I went to work sick, and I, got up sick, and I went to bed sick, and, just like, and so then I said, this is crazy, this is like dysfunctional, so I won't do this. I will start taking care of myself. So that meant taking care of myself, like, oh, I won't make myself go to work when I'm sick. And so that gets mixed in here, and I understand, like Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa are doing it for Dharma, which has got this different thing, but I'm confused in there somehow.
Okay.
I start clicking at this resistance.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you're saying that when you were working and a mom and everything, you pushed and pushed and you pushed through everything, even when you were sick or whatever, and then finally you realized that was crazy and you needed to take care of yourself, which is wisdom, so you started taking care of yourself. But then when I say something like I just said, then the mind gets confused and says,
this is bad. This is bad.
Yeah, it's like you're asking me to go back to the way I was. Yeah. Now, am I asking you to go back to the way you were?
Well, I'm sure you're not. From the neck up, I have a frame that says I have a frame that says my teacher would not want that. But inside, literally, there's this like, I won't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost
So,
physical.
So
I'm just kind of being brave and laying it out.
Oh, yeah.
You're feeling this like,
yeah. Yeah. Because, so, you're knowing from intellectually that I'm not trying to harm you, but inside there's this gut reaction of, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So look at that reaction. Don't come to a conclusion yet about what you're going to do. Yeah. Don't try and come to a conclusion yet. Just leave the conclusion aside, because that's not the important thing. But look at that mind that's saying, no. Or look at that mind that's saying, you're asking me to go back to how crazy I used to be. And to suffer like I used to suffer. Yeah? And look at that mind. And do some research about that mind.
I mean, that mind is so strange. It's even saying when you put those models out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, those guys shouldn't have done that. Lama Yeshe shouldn't have done that. And the guy with the heart attack shouldn't have done that. And then I'm going, whoa.
Yeah.
It's going like this.
Right.
My mind is going like that.
Right. But isn't it interesting how the mind can do that? That you can look at, okay, here's an example of somebody who, didn't mind what was happening to their body if they had the opportunity to help somebody. And our mind is going, well, they shouldn't have done that. That was stupid.
That's dysfunctional. No, really, I'm just laying out.
I know. And that's why I'm saying it's so good to research that mind. Look at that mind. Get to know it. Instead of telling yourself, instead of saluting that mind and saying, yes, you're completely right, doing that is totally crazy. Or instead of guilt-tripping your mind and saying, if I only had more compassion, then I would be like Lama. If I only had more compassion, because I did that to myself for a long time, if I only had more compassion, I would do all these things. So instead of doing that, because do you see how extreme both those responses are? And both of those responses are self-centered responses. Because self-centeredness always makes a crisis out of everything. Okay? So look at that mind. Research that mind. There it is. That mind that's saying no. And look at it. And, you know, you're going to have to be really careful and sneaky. Because if you come on too direct, it hides.
Yeah.
But look at it. And how does it think? And what are its arguments? And what's the evidence it uses to back up its arguments? And what are the results of it? And, you know, and just really research that mind, that attitude, fearlessly, you know. Like I said, you're not looking to come to a conclusion about what you should do. That's not the issue. But look at that mind. Yeah? Because it's such an interesting mind. You know, there's resistance, there's anger, there's guilt, there's so much stuff in there. You know? And it's the perfect opportunity to see exactly the dysfunctional ways of thinking that our self-centered mind hangs on to and believes. And bows down to. And lets control us.
For me, there's real fear in there. I mean, I feel it. It's fear.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that very well. A fear of, if I look at this, well then I may have to like go to all these things and I'll be exhausted and I'll get sick and I'll die, or, you know. Yeah, you know, there's so much fear, or not, you know, if I hang on to, you know, if I hang on to the resistance, then people aren't going to like me and they're going to criticize me and I'm not going to fit in and I'm going to criticize myself, and, you know, just look at the whole variety of thoughts that you have. Don't judge any of these thoughts. Just do research. Let it all perk up. Perkle, perkle, perkle. All these ugly, nasty thoughts. You can write them down if you want to. And just look at them. And write them down and look. And you don't have to react to any of these thoughts. Yeah? You don't have to let them control your life. And you don't have to clobber them over the head. You just look at what they're saying. Yeah. And then we see, oh my goodness, that's been what's been making me tick all these years. And that's what's been making me tick. That, no wonder. Aha. Yeah. And then you get to a point where you go, yeah, I really don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to judge myself. I don't need to feel guilty. I don't need to push. I don't need to resist. I don't need to do any of that. Yeah. I can just sit here and smile. I can say Namo Amitofa. I can say Om Bodhisattva Hum. Yeah. Hmm. You had something?
Well, I'm sitting here feeling quite peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of struggles with this over the years here. And so now I'm just ignorant. I would not do what Lama Zopa did.
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
You know, I think I
That's fine.
wanted to have gotten treatment earlier and had a better result,
Yeah.
knowing what I know.
Yeah.
But I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm too peaceful. You know, I sometimes, I don't know.
Don't worry about it. If you're peaceful, let yourself be peaceful.
I'm watching what I'm working with it, and I feel good about what I'm doing.
Good. Good. Don't criticize yourself if you feel good about what you're doing. But if you feel like you're working with something and you're working with it successfully, then continue on. Don't doubt yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about
Yeah.
I already know my lady state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like not letting them take over and stay on course.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're not going to be able to deal with everything all at once. We're not going to conquer all of our bad habits, by tomorrow. But, look at what is really impeding you, the biggest things that are impeding you, and work with those, And as you work with those, then you become more skilled and you become able to work with other things, yeah, that are more subtle.
There's also something, I'm a person, I think quite a few of us here, that is really easily influenced by energy around me. Too influenced by energy around me. So there's another part of that self-centered thing that's really about paying very close attention to what's really true for me and hold the space for other people to have what's true for them, but it does not have to influence me in the way that it sometimes does.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
And that's also a habit of mine, of kind of going with the flow. Or whatever. But it's not as visible.
Yeah.
But it is equally contributing to the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. To the thing of thinking that you have to work with your self-centeredness the same way other people are working with theirs. And I mean, this is what you said before, that when other people's discipline gets lax, then you go with the flow and yours get lax too. And if other people start to question their things, then you start to get squirmy and nervous and think that, oh, I better figure out what they're doing so I can do exactly like them. But we're all going to come up with different things. Yeah. Because balance is something that is unique for each individual, and for each individual, what our balance point is every day changes. Yeah? Isn't it? What you can do one day and what you can do the next are two completely different things. So it's not like, you get balanced and then you just stay right there. Yeah? And so everybody's going to have different things that they have to work with. Some people have more physical things, some people have more mental things. Yeah. People are going to have all sorts of different ways and things, when I said explore this mind that says, people are going to come up with different things because we're different individuals. Yeah. So the thing is, let other people have what's true for them and focus on yourself and what you need to work on. Yeah. Because the thing isn't so much what everybody else is doing. It's what we're doing, isn't it? Yeah? It's what we're doing.
I'm just curious about your thoughts on this that I thought about before when people talk about the energy around us or the energy of a person or a situation. I was thinking in terms of the nonviolent communication that we've been learning about when we're, the first part of the process of actually speaking in that, communicating in that way is to make a clear observation.
Yeah.
It's just an observable action. And I was wondering, is talking about the energy of something a subtle way of mixing evaluation and observation?
Good question. Excellent question. Yeah. So his question is, when we're doing NVC, the first step is to give just an objective evaluation with no emotional words in it. Just data kind of words. So, but everybody's talking about being easily influenced by the energy around them. So does that fall into the objective side, or does that fall into the emotional, layered side that we're adding on and projecting on? What do you think? Yes, why?
Why is it?
Why does it belong to that projecting side when you talk about the energy of the people around me and this kind of stuff?
Well, because it is all totally interpreted. I mean, if you look at just, if we just set up, this morning I looked, oh yeah, I came in late. I was late, so I sat in the back. There was not a single person sitting on the front row. Right? So my mind has a judgment about there should be a monastic in this room, right? And I'm sitting in the back, so I'm the one holding up the place, right? So the clear, objective thing is simply there's no one sitting on the front row.
Mm-hmm.
Pure and simple.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this energy of, but for me, I can interpret it as an energy of not holding our place, or that's a judgment. It's totally an evaluation right there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's just an example of copying to that.
Right.
Before just assessing. Oh, there's no monastic.
Yeah. Yeah. So to watch it and say, okay, there's nobody there. Yeah, that's fair enough. But then to watch how you interpret it. Yeah. And we're not saying that there's no truth in interpretations.
Right. But if I accumulate those interpretations and then call it a vibe or an energy, then it's really even old material.
Right.
That's yesterday's energy.
Right. Right.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. So the whole front row was empty?
Yeah. Well,
Girl
Jigme was cooking and
Grandma was back there.
Mm-hmm.
there's only 2 people in the front row. Well, there are now. I mean, that's part of it. But it has been frequent.
Mm.
So, it was also the accumulating data.
Frequent, where the whole front row is.
Not where the whole front row is gone, but where there's seats.
Mm-hmm.
And, part of it is that people have also been offering service. It's not all.
Yes, it's true. People have been offering service.
It's all of those things.
Yeah.
But the accumulated look is that the seats aren't filled.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm living with the same question that but with me, yes, also the energy, but also the look.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that people can transmit a lot of things with their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm sometimes probably too much sensitive to that. I can see a lot of things, or I think that I can see a lot of things there. So the energy, that's for sure one thing that I'm asking myself about today a lot. But also the eyes.
Yeah.
For me, it's something very clear, but am I non-violent communication?
Yeah. So the thing you're saying about how people communicate a lot of things through their eyes, and of course through their body posture, and through their being present or their not being present. So those are all modes of communication. Yeah. The thing is, are we getting the correct message that is being communicated to us? Or are we inventing a message that isn't there? Yeah. And I call that often mind reading. I know what somebody else is thinking without asking them. Yeah. So this is something where I think we always have to be aware of when we're having a judgment or an evaluation, or when we think something is being communicated non-verbally, or even something being communicated verbally. We think we understand the words that the person's saying. Actually, the words are just sounds, if you really want to get into the data, it's just sounds. Are we even correctly understanding the words? Yeah. So to realize that yes, in one way these are modes of communication, and it's suitable to see what's being communicated. But to also ask ourselves, is what I'm thinking actually being communicated by the other person, or am I mind reading or projecting it or reading things into there that are not there at all? Because we all know from experience, we've all had the experience of somebody getting upset with us about something we said, and we're totally puzzled about what's going on. We've all had that experience, haven't we? You know, we did something that in our mind it meant this, and somebody comes to us and they're furious, you know, because we were doing blah, blah, blah. And we're like, wait a minute, no, that's not what my action was communicating. I was thinking this, and I was doing it for this reason. But the other person's completely misinterpret the whole thing. Yeah? So whether it's communication by the eyes or the body language or words, you know, we always have to stop and ask ourselves, you know, have some measure of open space in there to question what we think the meaning is of the data we're perceiving. Yeah?
And how can we make that space broader? Because I think, for example, that I have that space that, okay, sometimes I don't, and I am reacting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, we react. We think we know immediately what that person's doing and what it means. Yeah, and we're just often reacting, and usually so defensive, aren't we? It's usually defensive mode and aggressive. Yeah. And then, so to be able, one thing I've noticed is when I have an instantaneous reaction like that, that's a warning sign to me that I need to slow down. Slow down and question if I'm really interpreting the situation correctly. You know, if I'm getting defensive, if I'm getting aggressive, you know, and I can feel it in my body, you know, then that's the warning sign of, oh, uh-oh, affliction is present. Yeah, affliction is present. So whether I'm reading the situation correctly or incorrectly, the presence of affliction is damaging. Yeah? And, you know, it could be that maybe that person did intend to insult me. Maybe I am reading it correctly, that they did intend to insult me. But the affliction is still present. There's some exaggeration going on. Yeah? So, you know, if I'm getting defensive, then I have to stop and say, well, first of all, am I interpreting that communication correctly? You know, and checking with the other person about what they meant. And even if they did say, yes, you know, I really meant to hurt your feelings, then to look at it and say, well, then why did I let my feelings get hurt? I can't say somebody else hurt my feelings. Somebody else said some words. Who hurt my feelings? Yeah, I'm the one doing the you know, interpretation, and I'm the one doing the overreaction. Yeah? Okay, even if somebody insults me, yes, okay, so? Why is that such a bad thing that somebody insults me? Well, the world's going to end!
Well, just in the last NBC video, Marshall's always saying, you know, you won't hear insults anymore. all you'll hear is the person saying, please, please help me, or thank you, or I don't know what my needs are. You know? And it's so true, you know, trying that out with my own inner blah blah jackal or anybody else's.
Yeah.
Try and stumble around and start seeing it that way. What you're saying just fits so well with that. And it also calls to mind for me the thing that helped me the very most in my relationship with my husband, which was the biggest fight, was Shanti Deva's remain like a piece of wood. You know, when you're in that kind of a, you know, you've got afflictions going everywhere, just don't do or say anything.
Yeah.
And that was so effective because I remember so clearly one time in the car having really the kind of argument that I could just flare up and burn the inside of the car. And not doing that. And there was this dead silence, and then he looked over and he said, well, what are you doing? And I said, I'm trying very, very hard not to be angry. And he was just, it just cut everything. He was just like, wow, really? I said, yeah, it's taking everything I have to do it, so I can't talk. And it was just that verse, I was just hanging on to that verse to see my piece of wood until all that is gone down.
Yep.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
But it worked.
But it worked. And that's Dharma practice when you do that. That's facing the self-centered thought and not letting it control you. That's the exact meaning of facing the self-centered thought. Yeah. Is your old habit is to burst out and like have a knockdown drag out, and you just say, I've got to keep my mouth closed. For the benefit of everybody. Yeah. And come back and talk about it later with the person. Okay. Shall we go on? Yes?
So when I hear you say that I do right with starting Abbey, I feel sad. Because my need for somehow communicating the consciousness of this opportunity is very, very important. Now I can't, history will tell, but I tend to say it because it makes me sad to even hear the thought.
Thank you. So you're saying that you felt sad when you heard me say that I wonder if I did right by starting the Abbey because it makes things too easy for you. Yes, I hope so. Because I look back now at the hardships I went through, and they were really precious. I'm very glad, and I really see the difference. Sometimes I sit here and I just scratch my head because the way people think now is so different than the way that the first generation, think. Sitting in Nepal and no flush toilets and no running water and and yet we all wanted to do retreat. It was like, oh, all I want to do is do retreat. Retreat is so special. Yeah. And we were so eager to do retreat. We didn't miss sessions, because we just really wanted to do retreat. Yeah. And then our teacher, of course, would send us out to do different work and things like that. Yeah. And so we did what our teacher said. But it was like, oh, I get to do retreat. Oh, this is so fantastic. Yeah. And then here it's like, oh God, you know, my little toe hurts. I really can't go to this session. You know, it's too cold, it's too hot, I didn't sleep, you know, this, you know. And I did Vajrasattva in the old Tushita Gompa. It had a concrete floor in the monsoon. You know, when we picked up our cushions at the end of the retreat, the bottom of the cushion was all rotted out because of the, you know, everything's mildewy and moldy in monsoon. You know, the whole thing was like damp. And there were mice running around the outside of the room when we're meditating. You know, like, and then, you know, sometimes, I think I told you about this, they would serve us the suji for breakfast, and, you know, so much of it was water. So then, you know, in the middle of your next session, you really have to pee. But if you walk out of a session, you can't count any of your mantra. And, you know, we all had to make the 100,000. And, you know, and then what are you going to do? And then, of course, the guy who was the retreat leader, he was talking with the director of the retreat center. And, you know, over like, you know, instead of making suji, make something else. And sometimes they would get into these incredible fights, and we would hear them screaming at each other. You know, and we had rice every day for lunch almost, and in monsoon there's hardly any vegetables, so you would get like, you know, a little bit of lady fingers, or a little bit of, you know, these little bitty carrots or some potatoes, but hardly any vegetables. And then the toilet, the water, you know, sometimes there wasn't any water in the toilet. It was a squat toilet, you know, and sometimes no water there. And they were cooking over. They didn't even have a kerosene stove then, you know. They were cooking over. I think they were using cow dung patties, and it was an earthen stove in the kitchen. The people who were cooking for us. Yeah. It was quite an experience. Yeah. And that was the retreat. I told you when I was sitting on my bed and the scorpion fell down next to me.
No.
Oh yeah, doing Bodhisattva retreat, you know, you visualize all the scorpions and then leading you, and then one break time I was in my room and a scorpion fell, because they have scorpions there, fell from the ceiling and plopped next to me. And sometimes we would find little scorpions around. Yeah, we had to take them outside. But everything was damp and mildewy and moldy, and yeah. Uh-huh.
I kind of have a bit of appreciation for that way of life as well. Like, I mean, I've never really lived like that, but just for the few months I was in India and Nepal, and that is just life there. I mean, that's just what it is, and it really helps to, I feel like being in such a materially cushy environment does have a negative impact on my mind. And I'm not quite sure what to do about that, if there's anything other than just keep trying to work with it. And I mean, it's almost like a more difficult situation to have such comfort, really. Yeah, because you just don't, because samsara just seems, it's not as true when it's not in front of you physically.
Right.
And we're really protected from it.
Right. Yeah, when you're comfortable, then samsara doesn't seem so real. Yeah. Whereas when you live in India, and it's so challenging there.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just,
you know? Yeah.
It's like going to take a shower and it's like cold water and it's like early morning and it just, you know, you're reminded of the hell rooms immediately just from that, you know.
Yeah.
Here it's like everything is, you know, you turn the fire on and you're warm.
You're warm, and you know, and if it isn't warm enough, then you complain and somebody makes it warmer, and yeah. Yeah. Whereas, you know, when you live there, there's nobody to complain to because they can't do anything. You know, you have a cold shower and there's no hot water, so you live with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that why? Because it spurs your practice, or what?
Yeah, when I said the hardship I went through is very precious, it was because, well, it kind of relates to what John was saying, is it made samsara very real, you know, and everything was very real, you know. You get up in the morning and it's like freezing cold out, and you get up and you go sit in the hall that's freezing cold, yeah, because it's straw walls and there's no choice, yeah. So you have to work with your mind. You know, it forces you to work with your mind, because either you work with your mind or you come running home. Yeah. Or, huh? Oh yeah, the mosquitoes sometimes are incredible, and the fleas, and the music, you know. Oh yeah, they play this Hindi music at all hours of day and night when you're trying to meditate. Yeah, loud, and the same song over and over again. You've been in India, yeah? Athena, yeah? So you know it. Yeah, so, you know, and there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. I mean, you know, and they're having a wedding, and so they're beating drums and playing music until who knows what time, and you can't sleep. And what are you going to do about it? Go down to the village and say, shut up? You know, you can't do that. So you learn to sleep, or you learn to do whatever, and you know, you get up the next morning and you go to Dharma class, because you know, you have this feeling like, well, no, there's not necessarily I'm not always gonna have this opportunity because my visa's running out. Yeah, and you have all these visa problems, and you have to go talk to the visa officials, and they give you this big runaround, and so every day is precious, and you don't want to miss any teachings. Yeah, you don't want to miss any sessions, and you know, you take notes, and then you go back to your room, and you know, there's no computer to sit and, you know, in front of, so you know, you read your notes and you rewrite your notes and you study them and you talk about them with other people to see if you got all the points right. Yeah. And then, you know, and then other hardships, sometimes mental hardships. You know, I mean, I got shipped all around the world with no say whatsoever. Nobody came and said, oh, please, we think you're so experienced and so wonderful and so talented. Please go to this Dharma center. Nobody said that. You know, I went to Italy because this one nun walked past me one day and said, she was like helping Lama, and she said, oh, Lama thinks it'd be very good for you to go to Italy. That was it. And I got sent to Italy. And I arrived in Rome in the middle of winter in my plastic Indian sandals. You know, and went to, and you know, then wound up going to this Dharma center, and you know, the whole 9 yards. And I looked at it, and I mean, sometimes I was miserable, and I was freaking out, and this and that. And I look back at it now, and I go, my mind was so stupid. You know, I just got so upset about things that I just didn't need to get upset about, and, you know, but it was because I experienced all those things. I remember when I finally left Italy, and I came back, and one of my teachers, Geshe-no Dargye, was teaching, you know, about anger, and it was like, oh my goodness, I know what he's talking about now. You know, I really know what he's talking about when he talks about anger. You know, whereas before I was a little bit out to lunch, you know, about the depth of my anger. So, yeah. So all these things, you know, they were really quite good. They were good. Because, you know, you just have to deal with it. That's the thing. You just have to deal with it. Yeah. And, you know, my teacher sent me here and there, and I could go and complain and say, I want to do this, I want to go here. But you didn't do that. You know? You didn't, we were taught you don't go and whine to your teacher. Yeah, so, you know, you do it. And then you live through it somehow. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say, there are these, like Buddha is saying in the East, they have more these outer circumstances who are more difficult, and in the West they have more the inner difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think they are similar. So really, people like here trying to go to retreat and do this, that could be, the outer circumstances could be very good, but the inner ones are difficult too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same as if, an example, I would be in India and there would be outer difficulties and my mental state would be quite okay in this moment. So I think we are doing it good.
Yeah. But you know what's quite interesting is when we have physical difficulties, then we don't complain so much about our mental difficulties. You know, when we live in a cushy environment, then our mind creates all sorts of problems that we didn't have before, necessarily. I mean, sometimes we had them before and they come out in the difficult physical environment too. But, you know, lots of times, and this is what you see with the advent of technology, you know, it's people have less physical problems but more mental problems because we just have more time and space to feel sorry for ourselves and moan and groan and everything, you know. If you think about what like our great-grandparents went through or something like that, they didn't have any time to do that. Yeah? And so, but we have a lot of time to be unhappy mentally. And we take full advantage of it. But yeah, you're right, there's different kinds of suffering, and you know, and we have to work with whatever suffering is there at the moment that we're dealing with, whether it's mental or whether it's physical. Yeah. But you know, a lot of times what you think is like such a big mental thing, then you go to a different environment, and because you have to take, because of the physical challenges there, then that mental thing isn't such a big thing anymore.
So this is then finished?
Not necessarily finished, because if you change circumstances and you get a comfortable physical circumstance again, then the mental one revs up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what it illustrates is that this whole thing of we don't need to believe everything we think at a particular time. Yeah? Because everything we think, everything we feel is something that arises due to causes and conditions. Yeah? It doesn't have its own nature, its own essence. It's not solid and concrete. It just happens to be a feeling or a thought or an emotion or whatever it is that's arising at that moment due to causes and conditions. Yeah? And it's not necessary to react so strongly to everything. Yeah?
And as we do that, as I have done that, then that takes all my energy. You know,
oh yeah. When
your energy is just sucked away.
Yep. When we're reacting very strongly to every external thing, no wonder we're exhausted at the end of the day. Yeah. Like, oh, this person said this I didn't like. Oh, that person said that. You know, the vibes.
And it's very strange at the night, or I don't know why I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And you didn't realize that all that things make you feel so tired.
Right.
And you say, I don't know why I'm so
tired. Yeah. Yeah, but it's because the mind is just, and the emotions, and churning and churning. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so now I have another one of those going on.
Okay.
It's just tightening up a little bit.
Uh-huh.
It's about showing respect to teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you training as a Westerner is so different from that. I mean, you also grew up in the West, but you had been there and you were tied into the Dharma and you knew what you were doing. My training, it isn't like just do what the teacher says or you're complaining. I have been trained to negotiate, to go in and, with respect, negotiate with authority figures, you know, and that's an okay thing to do, not disrespectful automatically. But it seems like there's an assumption it is disrespectful automatically, and I want to check that out.
Okay.
But for Westerners, you don't just, okay, unless you're in the military.
Right.
You don't just say, okay, I'm off to Italy.
Okay, so the way I was relating to my teachers is they said this, and I just did it, and I didn't go and negotiate or ask questions or anything like that. And you're saying that as a Westerner, you've been taught that you can go in and negotiate with an authority figure, you know?
In a respectful way.
In a respectful way, yeah. And so, well, the way I was trained, there is a lot of that in the training of, you know, you follow your teacher's instructions. I did realize over the years that just doing that without asking questions, I got to a certain point in my practice where that didn't work for me anymore, and I had to go and start asking questions, you know, but asking questions with respect. And I think there's a difference between asking questions with respect and going in and saying, I want and I don't want. Okay? Yeah? Because if your teacher gives you some instruction and then you don't understand it, or you're confused, or you think your energy might be used better in another way, to go in and say, you know, could you explain to me, you know, help me understand, you know, why this instruction, instead of going in and saying, I don't want to do this. Yeah? Okay? Yeah. Because I think the way we do it in the West, of, you know, being open and straightforward and talking about what's going on inside of us, I think that's very, very helpful. Yeah? But, you know, we do it in a respectful way, and I think it's easier when we can do that by asking questions, instead of making assumptions that we understand what they're doing and why, and we don't want to do it. To go in and say, well, actually, I don't understand. Yeah?
It seems quite different from negotiating.
Yeah.
It's a very different thing.
Yeah, in one way it is different. Yeah. Because, I mean, you're negotiating in the sense that you're expressing how you're thinking and how you're feeling. Yeah, but you're being wide open in it. Whereas in negotiation, we usually have our position, which is what we want, and how much are we going to negotiate, how much are they going to get their way, and how much am I going to get my way, you know? So that kind of negotiation, we're already going into the conversation with a position. Yeah, and that's going to limit our ability to learn if we go in with a position.
Okay, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Because I also think in the West, people go to the other extreme of trying to bow instantly.
Oh, yeah.
And very reactive. I've seen that here. People who come gone and people who stay with that kind of bowing instantly and then really pissed off protection.
Yep. Yep.
Away from the teacher.
Yep.
And
yep.
Which affects a lot of us.
Right. Yeah.
We fall in these ditches.
Right. And yes, I think that's a very good point. And I too have seen this thing of whatever the teacher says, you know, I have faith in whatever they say. And then at a certain point, then, you know, they go criticize the teacher and they do this and that and they explode and whatever, because they're not really, they're not engaged in a dialogue process, and they're not able to see that, you know, what is coming up in my mind is for my own training. When something comes up in their mind, they're seeing it as they're causing me suffering. Yeah. Instead of, oh, this is coming up in my mind, and this is exactly what I'm supposed to be applying my Dharma antidotes to. So then they stuff it in, and they do this whole surrender trip, you know, which I find really, blech, I can't stand it, because you know they don't really have respect and feel it. You know that they're just doing some weird kind of weird trip, yeah. So that, you know, I don't think people grow from doing it all. Yeah. Yeah. But you see, there's a difference between I don't want to and we're going to negotiate how much you're going to make me do, and I'm just this worm and I'll do whatever you say. Yeah, they're both extreme, aren't they? And this is self-centered thought. Yeah. But in all those situations with my teacher, when, you know, things would come up, and I was sitting there going, you know, it's like the one thing that was constant during it was, this is the situation I'm supposed to practice Dharma in. You know, it's like when you've heard enough teachings that when you're getting angry, you know instantly when you get angry that this is a situation for practicing Dharma, you know. As long as we keep, as soon as we get uncomfortable and get angry because we're uncomfortable, thinking I've got to change the external thing, or I've got to tell somebody I don't like this, or whatever, you know, then we're missing the chance to practice. Yeah. So some situations, yeah, it's a bad situation. We need to intervene. We need to change things. Yeah. But we need to work with our anger before we do it. Yeah. And other situations are just our own personal preference. And, you know, can I let go and do something somebody else's way? No. Because my way's right. And I told you that was one of the big things I learned going to Taiwan for full ordination is, you know, I had this great idea about how to move the people that was much more efficient than what they were doing, and nobody wanted to hear it. And it was such a good teaching for me to sit there, you know, and like watch, being so frustrated, like we could be having so much more teaching and not doing this, and no, this is the situation I practice the Dharma in. Yeah. Okay, I think we better stop.